Okay, I'm amusing myself way too much, but that's
That's all right.
partially because we're about to go into something that wasn't terribly amusing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it's time to gird our loins and get into our review of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One.
Yes. So, um, if, so full disclosure, I've seen every movie in the franchise at least once, maybe twice. Um, and I think you've only seen like a couple of them, right?
A handful. I've seen one around when it came out,
Yeah.
um, and I've seen the one that J.J. Abrams directed.
That
Is
was
that
the third one, I think.
was it? No, I think it was later than that. To the internet.
Yes.
J.J. Abrams. Impossible. I think it was the fifth one.
I thought it was the
Or,
third one.
or huh? I guess it was the third one. But
Okay.
that doesn't. Okay, so it was definitely way. Did he direct more than one of those?
No, he just did the one.
I did not think that I saw that one in 2008.
Oh, that's yeah. I thought it was well.
Let's find out. I got to find out here.
So
He
the
directed and wrote Mission Impossible 3. Okay, maybe I saw the one that he produced. I think I saw Ghost
Ghost Protocol.
Protocol.
Yeah, that was the fourth one. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm significantly behind on the series, is what I'm going to
that's
say.
that's all right. Yeah. Ghost Protocol was actually, I would say, that was the one where it started to turn into the franchise that we're seeing today. The more the more spy action oriented. Although I guess the second and the third one were pretty action oriented too. But
Yeah. So regardless, you're much more versed in this series than I am.
yeah. So the formula of every Mission Impossible movie, for the most part, is uh, there's a MacGuffin that they've got to that Cruise and his team has to, Ethan Hunt, that's Tom Cruise's character, they have to get this MacGuffin, and usually something goes wrong, and they have to do it on their own. They got to go rogue. Um,
As in the case of Rogue Nation,
yes, actually, I think the only Mission Impossible movie where Ethan and his team don't go rogue is the second one. But in
which
that
is also the
movie,
least popular one of the series, from what I understand.
right? Yeah, it is. It's the least popular, but the villain in that movie is a rogue agent. So
Okay, so that would be redundant.
yeah, um, but yeah, so they have to go rogue to get this MacGuffin, and then Ethan does his spy trickery, chicanery, and then they succeed in the mission, and then off to the next thing. Um, in this one is I would say quite a bit different from the other ones. It's This one's a lot slower.
Yeah,
Um,
and I kind of wonder if part of that is the fact that it's part one to a two-part movie.
yeah,
So there's a level where we're kind of getting, it's like you're getting act one and a half of the story, and there's kind of expanding out a bunch of scenes and set pieces.
right, and also too, this movie's pushing 3 hours, which is like, yeesh.
Yeah, yeah, which is a big ask for a complete movie, much less half a movie.
Right, yeah,
And
uh,
and I remember last summer when this came out, we were kind of confused because we assumed this was going to be another Top Gun Maverick,
yeah,
right? So like that had come in and saved the box office, literally financially saved the box office in the theaters.
yeah,
It's like okay, we have really uninspiring looking Indiana Jones movie coming out. Um, Barbenheimer's about to hit, but this seemed like it was going to be a contender, and it really wasn't.
no,
They even kind of did the weird Wednesday release thing to try to make it so that people would confuse how big of an opening weekend it had and try to
yeah,
make it seem bigger.
yeah, and and if I remember correctly, like Tom Cruise was actually trying to really lobbying hard for to keep the movie in IMAX over Oppenheimer, which
Didn't pan out.
that didn't pan out. No, but yeah, and I think and that's probably for a different set of factors. I think the running time probably scared some people away, although Oppenheimer was like 3 hours. Although, of course, it might be like, well, do I want to see a 3 hour Mission Impossible movie, or do I want to see 3 hour Oppenheimer? Yeah,
Yeah, this could be one of those situations where the fact that it's a long running series actually hurt it.
yeah,
Because, like, on the one hand, so for my memories of Ghost Protocol, I remember set pieces. I don't remember plot or characters.
yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to, and I think that's kind of a problem with this franchise, is that the stories are so formulaic and the characters are very generic that it is hard to keep them all straight. Uh, and I was talking about this with my parents, that like one of the selling point of this franchise is Tom Cruise doing some crazy wacky stunt,
Hmm.
and usually more than one. Um, and and with this movie, he really only has the one where he's driving off the cliff off the cliff on the motorcycle, which looked mostly CGI, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and with the way the stunt was set up, it very probably would have had to be,
Yeah,
or like with a stunt double. So, so yeah, so unfortunately, it kind of lets you down on what the series is known for.
yeah,
But also, this has been billed as the end of the franchise between these two movies. So I
yeah.
guess they might be trying to say something deeper than normal. Uh,
Probably, yeah.
so if it isn't too wonderful as a spectacle, let's get into talking about it as a story.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things I did notice real quick was that there are a lot of callbacks to the first movie in this. Um, they brought a character from the first movie back for this one,
Hmm.
um, and the one the White Widow. She was actually in the previous movie. She's the daughter of Vanessa Redgrave's character in the first movie.
Okay.
um, but if you remember the first movie at all.
Like I said before, I remember set pieces,
Yeah,
like the one of him being like brought through the ceiling through the maze of lasers.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was the first one. But yeah, so getting into the story, we it starts off where we have a Russian sub which has some sort of stealth capabilities.
Right. And as a super advanced AI that's keeping track or that's managing the sub.
Right, and then the AI becomes sentient, and then sinks the sub and kills the crew. And what the MacGuffin in this movie is a key, and
Right. A
it's
cruciform key that's kept in two halves.
right, yes, and supposedly this key has the AI's source code, and of course they're calling the AI the entity. That's
Right.
they've dubbed it the entity. And I will say, to get a little bit of the review of the movie, there are a lot of exposition dumps in this.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say is that this is where I kind of realized that the movie was not holding my attention very well.
Yeah,
Okay, so the opening scene, the they're on this Russian submarine,
yeah,
and the AI gives them a false contact of an enemy submarine that's getting too close. So they decide to fire a torpedo at it, and the AI takes over the targeting computer of the torpedo and makes it loop around and kill them.
right.
Um, so I think it's because some character, like the characters' Russian accents, like some characters had good Russian accents, and I think some of them didn't.
Yeah.
I actually thought there was another submarine there until I went back and double checked
Oh,
because like, 'cause not gonna lie, that kind of made me realize, oh well, it'll get better once Tom shows up. And then
yeah,
weirdly, it didn't.
yeah. It's kind of hard to explain. It's almost like they were they're setting up way. There's a lot of setup in this movie and not a whole lot of payoff.
Yeah, which again, part one of two.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
we criticized Rebel Moon for it. We're gonna
Yeah.
criticize this for it,
Yeah. um,
especially because as much money as this thing lost, we know that Moon 2 is happening. We may possibly live in a world where Dead Reckoning Part 2 never comes out.
I don't know if Tom Cruise will let that happen, but yeah.
Yeah, he might. Maybe he just funded himself with some of his Maverick money.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so what ends up happening is he gets the mission. Cruz gets the mission from the director of the CIA, in the who was in the first movie. I can't remember the name of the character, but he gives him the mission, and then he has to go to the desert to find Elsa. Elsa Faust, which is such a wonderful femme fatale spy name. I will give them that.
Yeah,
Um, she's played by Rebecca Ferguson, and she's been in the previous. I think this is like the third movie she's been in. Um, and so Cruz shows up to rescue her because she's got half of the key. And
right.
but they've sent these bounty hunters after her.
Right. So they have a very kind of not very fun and exciting. Like it was just a very straightforward gunfight in the desert. Like there wasn't any cool stunt in it.
No, it was they threw in the sandstorm, but I mean other than that, yeah, there wasn't very no frills. And which again, you're not expecting that from a Mission Impossible movie. Um,
Right. And also I'll say that having I actually kind of kept thinking that the whole entity thing that almost seems more like a James Bond plot.
it is, yeah. Yeah, yeah, that definitely felt more like something Bond would be going up against. Yeah. And we'll get to the villain in a second. Talk about him, but I mean, he kind of felt I don't want to say cartoonish, but you know,
Well, I mean, okay, so we find out that everybody wants to control the entity because the entity, this Russian AI, has spread through the whole internet, and
right?
it is just for its own amusement breaking into secure servers just to prove that it can.
Yeah,
And everybody goes, well, if we can get control of this entity, we've basically won the next world war. And the CIA guy had this very cynical take on the future of the
yeah,
next war will be dirty and nasty as we use depleted resources to fight for a shrinking ecosystem. Bah, 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 bah.
yeah,
Okay, Doomer.
yeah, yeah, and Ethan Hunt seems to be the only one who wants to kill it.
Yeah, which is why he and his team have to go rogue. So they kept that going.
Yeah. And I do like that they kind of had one character and there was like they always go rogue.
Yes. In fact, they even tried to tell them at one point, okay, you are not. You will not going rogue this time will not be tolerated. You'll do exactly what you're told, and then they go rogue.
Yeah. Yeah. So then Ethan meets up with the two other big team members, which is Luther, played by Ving Rhames, and Benji, who's played by Simon Pegg. And they have this whole. You talked about it when you were watching it that the scene felt weird to you.
Okay, so here's this actually happened in two scenes in a row. One at the CIA base, and then right after with this, and it kind of came up every time anybody was doing an exposition dump.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like okay. It didn't feel like I'll just use Benji and Ving Rhames here. It didn't feel like Benji and Ving Rhames here were actually having a conversation. What it kept like they both know things about what's going on here, but it's like they sat down and wrote up a script for what they were doing, and then they each agreed. I go, okay, well I want to give Ethan the briefing. No, I want to give Ethan the briefing. Okay, fine. You can have paragraphs 1, 2, and 4. I'll take 3, 5, and 7. Then you can come back in for 6, because it didn't feel like the characters bouncing off each other or responding to what they were saying. It felt like the characters reading from a script.
Yeah, which they probably were. Yeah.
Right. It just, I mean, yeah, being actors and all.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, that would be some Ghostbusters 2016 nonsense if they were letting them just completely ad lib the entire movie. That would be kind of hilarious, actually.
Yeah.
but and this just kept happening, and
Yeah.
it really took me out of the mission briefing scenes. And I don't know if that's been the style in the previous movies, but
Kind of. Yeah. But not to that degree though. They would never really waste that much time with exposition stuff. It was usually like they would do like a mission briefing, and then Ethan would say, "All right, well, this is what we got to do. This is how we're going to do it," and then they would go right to it. Yeah,
right, where for this, I think it's because it's an abstract enough concept. They wanted to make sure that the audience understood what was going on and what the stakes were.
yeah, yeah,
Because this is a weakness of the movie. There isn't a real villain to punch. What they really want is they want this key, which will let them into. I think the idea is that they have to get into the nuclear submarine in order to capture the source code of the beast or of the entity.
yeah. I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what they were trying to do. Yeah,
Because, like, for some reason, even though this thing has dispersed itself and backed up its code everywhere, oh, if you can get the original unmodified source code, it belongs. Yeah, you can tame it and make it do whatever you want.
right. Yeah, it sort of reminded me of the puppet master from Ghost in the Shell. Only
Yeah.
not quite as evolved.
And my uncultured ass immediately thought of Ultron from Age of Ultron, where it had the problem of, okay, so you can replicate his sentience into all these robots. How are you possibly going to, like, he had no backups off site?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so then so they're at the airport in Abu Dhabi because they're trying to find like the other buyer of the other half of the key, and they figured out that the only way they can tell if the key is genuine or not is if they put them together and then they light up. That's the only way that they know. Otherwise, if they don't, then they know it's a counterfeit.
Right.
And so of course, in the midst of all that, there's a CIA team that's trying to get Ethan and his team, and so they Benji hacks into the security footage and puts Ethan Hunt's face on a bunch of different people, so
Yeah,
to fool them.
that was cool. Although
Yeah.
we get the first instance of the entity messing with them, where it has what turns out to be an empty nuke that Benji has to try to disarm. And the way they had him do it was kind of stupid, because
Yeah.
the AI, I don't know, maybe it's because the AI is trying to think what would fool a robot, or it's like the equivalent of the 3 questions you're asked when you're trying to reset the password on your bank account.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was really weird, and yeah, and on top of that, they'd give him a riddle. You're like, well, how do I
Yeah,
solve? What's the answer to this riddle? They're like, okay, so the AI is the Riddler.
yeah. It's like the AI just came up with, like, it's almost like the AI asked Chat GPT, what's a common riddle that can be solved under pressure?
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, kind of the impression I got was that this is kind of what a dumb person thinks that a smart movie is.
Mm, yeah, I kind of got that impression too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and also while they're there, they run into this thief lady who I guess is the romantic interest, question mark.
Yeah, which yeah. Well, yeah. First, it for a while you think it's Elsa because like she's been in the other movies and the two of them had like had a little bond, but but they never really explored that very much. And yeah, I don't know. It's I think a lot of that's just Tom Cruise trying to be trying to be a stud.
Right. I mean, he did kind of force a love interest that wasn't technically needed for Top Gun Maverick,
Yeah,
although it did like give some human element, I guess. But
yeah. Well, they were trying to make it like the first one, and
you know,
but yeah, it's Haley Atwell is the thief.
okay.
Of course, Peggy Carter from the MCU.
Oh, I
Uh,
didn't recognize her. Okay.
yeah, um, yeah. The woman that uh, Captain America decided to destroy time so that he could be with her. Just ruin the timeline.
Yep.
Um,
Uh, man.
but
But
but yeah, but yeah. So she's got the other half of the key, and they do this whole thing where they're kind of, like the two of them are going back and forth, and like a callback to the first movie is Cruise doing the sleight of hand stuff, which
oh, okay.
he did that in the first movie where he was kind of like doing magic trick, um, and of course while all that's going on, Ethan sees a guy from his past, the who's I guess the main human villain in the movie. Um,
Yeah, who is a guy who I guess is a acolyte of the entity and supports the entity. He
yeah,
he basically exists because you can't punch the cloud.
right, yeah,
And conversely, the cloud can't punch you.
right, and this is not a sci-fi movie, or it's not like Age of Ultron where they give a bunch of robots everywhere and they can just fight the robots.
Right. Which, not gonna lie, that might have made things a bit more exciting.
Yes, it might
Because,
have. Yeah.
because otherwise, the basic plot is Russian submarine shoots itself.
Mhm.
Tom Cruise in the desert having a fight. Tom Cruise uses their face generator thing to pretend to be the CIA agent.
Yeah,
Abu Dhabi airport scenes with the stupid CAPTCHA type security measures on the fake nuclear bomb
yeah,
that the entity sent to screw with them for some reason because I guess he knew they were there
yeah,
in advance. Um, they then go to Venice to try to find out more things, and
yeah.
the
Well,
entity.
yeah, yeah.
Or did I miss? Did I skip a scene?
You skipped Rome when they go to Rome first.
Wow, it was so impactful.
Yeah. Well, Rome was where they had the 20-minute long car chase.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, with like the tiny car that they
Y-
eventually get into, and
Yeah, they're handcuffed together.
my brain refused to store that because it meant nothing, and
Well, yeah,
I just kept getting frustrated at that. That is a stupid thing because like he's at first making her drive because he's handcuffed on the wrong side to use the car properly, and then she gets frustrated. Okay, fine, you drive. And so he like is handcuffed to her like like across his arms or just
yeah, it's yeah, and
it,
well, yeah, and then they get in that little Fiat, and it's like I guess it's all like souped up with like high tech stuff, and he's just boomering it up, like
yeah,
trying to drive it.
yeah, like that whole scene could have been cut very
Yeah,
easily.
yeah,
Okay, so then they go to the different Italian city.
yes,
They go to
yeah,
Venice. They hit a nightclub where I'm pretty sure I saw some nudity that the shadows didn't entirely cover.
yeah. I think I saw some too. Yeah,
Um, and they run into the Harley Quinnish looking girl there.
yeah.
Um,
Which is the actress. I can't remember her name, but she was Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy.
oh, I was about to call her Asian Harley Quinn, but I said, "Well, is she Asian?" I couldn't quite tell because she was blonde and she's wearing heavy makeup on the cover here.
Well, she was kind of an Asian Harley Quinn. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and then the avatar for the entity
Mm.
kills a character, and I guess I'm supposed to feel sad. Which to be fair, it was a character who had. If I had seen more of the movies, I would have had more of an impact on me.
yeah. Well, I'll be honest, it didn't have that much impact on me, and I'd
Okay.
seen the other previous movies because I'm yeah, she was okay.
A-
Yeah.
And then it feels like they spend an hour on a train.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it did feel that way. Yeah. The
And the
yeah
thing is,
the
like, the only Tom Cruise stunt you really get in the movie, like you were
yeah
saying before, was him like riding a motorcycle off of a cliff and paragliding onto the train,
right.
whi- which is only okay. When you're a writer, you can write anything you want. Problems don't really exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, part of it is you're making you're it's supposed to be like you make a fun problem, and then the hero has to figure out a solution. But if you had cut that Tom Cruise stunt and just had him be on the train when he was supposed to be on the train, that would have
Yeah.
saved a lot of time in this movie.
Yeah, it would have. Tom Cruise needed to to have a cool stunt in there, you know.
Yeah, but climbing up the Wiz Khalifa, not the Wiz Khalifa. God, oh my God, why did I think Wiz Khalifa?
That's going to be a short.
Yeah, the Burj Khalifa, the
Yeah,
Burj Khalifa.
yeah,
Tom Cruise climbing up the Burj Khalifa without wires. This is not.
yeah,
It was just very tame. And the thing is, if this had been like a first act stunt, this would have been like, okay, there's our foretaste of the Tom Cruise stunting to happen.
yeah. And they did that in which one was that? I think it might have been Rogue Nation. Was the one where it opened with one of his stunts where he's hanging onto the side of a plane that's taking off.
Mm. Uh, yeah, but he does, land and he's on top of a train fighting the Avatar, and then the CIA agents show up, and I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the train was run away, and the Avatar he sabotaged it. The train took out the brakes, and then half of it falls off a cliff, and they have to run up the
as you see in the cover here,
yeah yeah they have to run it up the
or poster.
they had to run either on top of it or through it to keep from falling down the cliff. Which yeah, all right.
Yeah. The thing I learned from this movie is that Tom Cruise, if you hit him with a bunch of wind, yeah, he gets very floppy lips or very
Uh,
floppy cheeks
yeah, yeah.
because that kept happening.
I think he's had one too many facelifts.
Very possible, extremely possible. Speaking of, like, he is age, like he looks significantly older than he did in Top Gun Maverick in this one.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think because Top Gun Maverick was actually supposed to come out in 2020. So I think
Right.
they filmed that like in 2018 or 2019, and then they probably filmed this. They filmed this in 2021.
Right. I remember because it was a big deal that somebody got COVID on the set, and this thing went viral with him shouting at people not to break
The
break
COVID
the
rules.
protocols that they
Yeah.
were requiring at the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he has kind of aged quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 years. And hey, D Rhino,
Yeah.
good to see you.
Yeah. But in the end, of course, because it's part one of two,
Mhm.
I believe didn't the bad guy get away with the key?
He did not.
He did not.
Cruz, Ethan Hunt swapped it out.
Oh,
He
that's
did
right.
his little sleight of hand thing. He gave him his
See
cigarette lighter.
that shows you how much I cared by that point, because like I felt the length of this thing like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was remarking the other day too with my parents that this is a trend I've been seeing with action movies that I don't like, which is they're getting longer and the action
Mhm.
sequences are getting longer, and those aren't necessarily good things.
Right. I mean, okay, so imagine you're making a hot fudge sundae.
Mhm.
It should not be 40% hot fudge. That's too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this movie was definitely a disappointment. I'm as somebody who's watched the previous Mission Impossible movies, I mean, I would put this in there with the second movie, which,
Oof.
yeah, yeah, I will say, I don't think the second movie had its good points. I think the action sequences and I thought in that were really good. But the story wasn't bad, but the rest of it was just really dumb.
I'd be very curious what an extremely brutal editor could turn this into.
Yeah, me too.
Because like I feel like if you there's like an hour of fluff you could probably cut off of this thing,
Oh yeah, yeah. You could have cut out the whole Rome sequence. Um,
or you have just enough of it to like actually yeah like why couldn't you just if you show them landing in an Italian airport, nobody
yeah,
could, somebody might notice, hey, that's not what the Venice airport looks like, that looks like Rome. Shut
yeah,
up.
yeah. Shut up.
But yeah, like this did not have me super excited for part two. It's
No.
basically overlong. It has a villain that, because it's a omnipresent AI, you
Mhm.
can't really have any feelings about, which is why they smartly tried to give it an avatar, but the avatar himself was like
Eh,
dull.
dull. Yeah.
What I think what you might have been able to do better would be, people think like, what if it was that this could be a this could be a part two revelation that would be interesting. What if it turned out that it wasn't actually an AI, like it wasn't actually hadn't actually achieved sapience, but somebody already had the source code and was able to basically use it to do his bidding, and you found out that there was
Mm.
a man you could punch.
Yeah, that would be a really cool twist. Yeah.
Because like the thing with AI as we know it today, like Chat GPT, Bing AI, whatever,
Yeah.
it isn't actually it isn't really artificial intelligence. What it is, it's like a very complicated out like finding algorithm,
Yeah.
which is why like it's not it's very it's well you've heard about the case in Canada where somebody was trying to get they may have like a deal up there for like bereavement tickets where you can get less if you can prove that a family member died and you're making a long trip to you know to
Mhm.
to attend a funeral,
Yeah.
and the Air Canada AI confidently told him, "Oh yes, so just order the tickets at full price now. We'll reimburse you after the fact." When
Yeah.
that is not the policy at all, you have to get it done. You have to get it taken care of in advance.
Yeah.
And but like that's AI as we know it today.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And
Also, hi Edwin,
hey, Owen.
nice to see you, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so do we recommend Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning? No.
No.
Uh, what I think I could conceivably see myself recommending was if when part two comes out, you have some rogue editor come along and make a single movie out of it.
Yeah.
Even if that ended up being 4 hours, I feel like that this is all payoff and no, or this is all set up and no payoff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And in my opinion, I actually think the previous movie was a good endpoint. If you go and watch that movie, you could see that as being an endpoint.
You wonder if they kind of wrote that in intentionally, since Tom Cruise is getting up there, and it's like if they made I'm trying to think of it. If they made another Rambo movie at this point, you're obviously going to write it as if it's Stallone's last time out, even if he somehow lives another 5 years and cranks out another one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
unfortunate. Yeah,
just kind of a disappointment. Not even angry at it. Just I feel like it stole my time.
yeah.